These juicy nugs are the favorite food
Wait,
of an
Mark Rober!
incredibly intelligent crow. But they're
Wait, the crow eats chicken nuggets? I feel like it shouldn't be allowed to do that. Yeah, that's fucked up, or I'm down to watch
being
this.
defended by this bird cage. Because if she wants to gain access to the nugs, she'll need to first solve the 9 increasingly difficult puzzles I designed to
Chickens
protect
eat
them.
chickens?
This crow
They
escape
shouldn't be
room
allowed to do that
gauntlet is
either.
extremely challenging. So challenging, in fact, for comparison, I had some young humans also attempt to solve the exact same puzzles with fascinating results.
Whoa.
But just like with my backyard squirrels, I will admit that
squirrels.
in hindsight, I completely underestimated my adversary. Now, juicy nugs might seem like an odd choice, but if you look closely, you could spot the exact moment my personal vendetta against the crows started about a year ago. Did you catch it? I'll play it back, but this time, watch right here.
Oh.
The crows had figured out I DoorDash food to my porch on an embarrassingly regular basis. So when a car rolled up to my house and a person got out, it meant dinner was served.
Oh shit!
And this continued on for
He's
nearly
stealing
every
the
delivery,
Chick-fil-A.
until it all came to a head one day when they once again decided to go for my nugs.
Bro. That's some devious bird shit. Holy.
But this time, instead of giving up like a quitter, I reordered my food because I was
Poor
really
Mark.
angry and hungry. And this is when I realized I was in over my head. Because I was no longer just having my food stolen by a crow, I was being bullied by a crow, as he just knocks over my drink and flies off.
Not the lemonade!
In fact, I'm no crow translator, but if you play that back at double speed, that's a bully's laugh if I've ever heard it.
Are you serious?
And the true irony here is, of the 8 billion people on the planet, mine was quite possibly the worst porch for them to be stealing from. Because I spent the better part of 7 years seeking revenge on a different
Damn, that's
species
some nice
that was
grass.
stealing from my porch.
Oh yeah, the
In the
porch
form
pirates.
of fake packages, fine glitter, and copious amounts of fart spray.
Oh. Alright.
And so at this point, I needed answers. I wanted to know if I was really being targeted here. Like, actually, how smart is a crow? And after even a minimal amount of research, it turns out really, really smart. From playing an instrument,
Wow, they're so
understanding
talented!
and
Yo, Faint
manipulating
Smiles, thanks for
objects.
6 months.
to straight up psychological warfare, where you see this crow here wants some water, but the big bad vulture is currently being a water hog. So he sneaks up behind him and plucks out a feather, literally framing the poor other vulture who gets chased off as this genius instigator gets what he wants.
Ray, thanks for 7
So to fully
months.
test
Wow,
the
and he
theory,
gets
I
it
was
all to
deliberately
himself.
being picked on by all my neighborhood crows. I found a crow named
Wow,
Cheryl
crows
at
are
a
really
bird rescue
smart.
sanctuary to represent their species as I tested the limits of their intelligence. And like any good scientist would, we started off with the first step of the scientific method, by just observing her with some cameras we placed in her enclosure. It was really interesting to see how her curiosity would drive her to figure out clever ways to interact with the objects in her environment,
Oh!
occasionally motivated by a strategic
She can use a
tree. It became
scale!
clear she had a few favorite objects she loved to play with, like this wooden ball, as she demonstrated a surprisingly deep understanding of cause and effect. So after a couple of months of observation and study, a plan had now formed to test their species with a 9-part escape room gauntlet, which meant the only thing left at this point was to put that plan into action with a 10-second build montage.
Holy. He's making an escape room for birds, bro. He's
Here are the
crazy.
basic elements. For starters, I've placed her favorite combo meal right here on this table. From sad experience, I know when she enters this room, the first thing she'll be drawn to are the juicy nugs. But it will be impossible
The
for her to
chicken.
access them because of this reverse bird cage that's meant to keep birds out. And the only way for this bird cage to
Genius.
autonomously unprotect the nugs is if she solves all 9 of our puzzles, starting first right here on this desk. Because this is where Cheryl will find
This
a
is so
graduated
fucking
cylinder
cool.
with her favorite wooden ball that's too far down for her to reach directly with her beak. So here's the question. If you're a crow, how would you solve this puzzle given all the materials you have at your disposal here on the table? Well, if you said you would take the heavy rocks and you would add them one at a time to raise the water level, you'd be right. So Cheryl will have to come to the same conclusion.
Smart.
In addition to not using any of the other decoy materials like the cork or the cotton balls that would just float uselessly on the surface.
Then
Once
it's
she has
harder
enough
to get
rocks
the
to get the ball, the water level will now be high enough to complete the electrical circuit with these 2 pieces of copper tape. That then sends a signal to an Arduino. This puzzle has been sufficiently solved, and after a few seconds time delay, a light
Holy shit, it's
automatically
all
turns on,
automated.
leading her to the next puzzle, aka
God
the
damn.
scales of justice. After seeing videos like this where the crows are interacting with human-made objects and tools, in this case to get water, we present her with a scale to see if she can figure out how to use it. Once again, there are objects on the table to choose from, and if she adds enough of them to one side, it will tip the scales, triggering this limit switch here, indicating the puzzle is solved, which will activate the lights on the Scooby-Doo portrait roulette. The goal for this puzzle is to assess their
Oh my
facial
God, Mr.
recognition
Beast.
capabilities. Because I remember seeing a study where researchers captured and tagged a set of crows wearing a specific mask,
Yeah,
and
I'll
then
pop
later
my
released
mask.
them. So after that, the crows would dive bomb and attack anyone wearing that mask. But even more interestingly, they were still doing it a decade later. Meaning if a crow doesn't
A
like
crow
you for some
never
reason,
forgets.
they will remember your face and pass that vendetta on for generations. In our case, we left a picture
That's
of me in
fucking
Cheryl's home
crazy.
enclosure, and every time she pulled on the leather strap underneath the picture of my face, she would get a treat. So to see if she remembers my face,
Oh my God, he's
even in different
brainwashing
clothes, we'll
the
rotate
birds to
through
like
these
him.
portraits that include decoys like Kevin the Backyard Scientist, and some guy who made a cameo in my lemon battery video.
Oh,
Delicious.
wow.
Refreshing. Organic.
Not worth 10 hours?
Amazing.
12 hours?
Totally worth it.
And if she pulls on the leather strap
I haven't
and
seen
rings
that
the
video.
bell associated with my face, the piezoelectric sensor on the back will sense the vibration and some money will flutter down from the ceiling, at which point we once again rotate the Scooby-Doo portraits. Then once she's correctly picked me 3 times in a row, she can move on to the next puzzle called the cash grab. The idea here was to mimic the videos where people train crows to go out and retrieve money they find lying around and then exchange it for a treat. In our case, all
Oh
of
my
our
God,
bills have NFC
they
chips
teach
on
the
them, and money
birds to
collection box
be
has an
pickpockets
NFC
for
reader near
them.
the opening. So if the reader registers all $3 bills have been added, it
Can
tells
a
that
bird
the
go to
microcontroller
jail?
that activates a servo motor that opens this door, revealing a tool. Now, on the off chance she even makes it this far, Cheryl has to grab that tool and bring it to the next puzzle, aka the fishing hole. The inspiration for this puzzle was from this fascinating video I saw where a crow took a piece of bread that would have been a fine meal on its own, but instead it used the bread as bait to lure a fish to upgrade to a much better meal. And then in another video, I saw a crow use a stick as a tool to remove a tasty worm out of a hole. So here, Cheryl will first
that a
need to
worm?
figure out how to
That didn't
bend
look like
the
a
end
worm.
part of this tool into a hook shape, after which she has to stick it in here and fish out the cup. Now the whole container system here is supported by a strain gauge continuously measuring the weight of the system. So when it registers it's lighter by exactly 1 cup, the next puzzle lights up. And this was a pretty straightforward cup stack challenge, and it's something we saw a lot of examples of online, including with Cheryl herself in her free play. The engineering here is pretty clever though, with an inner and outer copper ring in each cup, so as they stack up, the electrical circuit gets closer and closer to being completed. And when she has the final cup she retrieved from the fishing hole, it completes the circuit, lighting up an old classic throwback from the squirrel obstacle course, you guessed it, the tourist trap. This is sort of designed as a reprieve and a little bit of a fun break for the final 2 puzzles. And lest you think crows don't like to have fun, I'll direct your attention to this crow repeatedly sledding down this roof, and this crow and his buddy swinging from this branch like Tarzan. Here, of course, when she
They're
sticks
just like
her head
little
through the hole,
babies.
allowing us to take her adorable picture, she's rewarded with an appetizer portion of a juicy nug to whet her palate and give her the strength to go the distance, which she'll need to face the penultimate challenge, aka the shipwreck. The idea behind this puzzle came from seeing crows coordinate their beaks and feet sort of like this. So Cheryl has to pull the cork off and then continue pulling up on the string, pinning it under her foot the whole time until she's pulled enough of the string for the ship to teeter backwards,
Turbo!
triggering this tilt
31
switch,
months.
sending the signal.
I'm actually
to activate
excited
the
for
final
Dark Souls
challenge.
2.
The egg drop. The concept
It's been
here
a
came
while.
from probably the most incredible example of crow intelligence in the wild that I stumbled upon in my research, where in order to crack open an impossibly hard walnut, they would first drop the walnut into the street directly above the crosswalk. Then cars would drive by cracking the nut, at which point the crows would wait for the crosswalk
Wait,
to
they're
turn,
so
then safely
smart.
hop out to collect their delicious reward. So inside our egg, there's an
Using
IR emitter.
cars as
But in order to
nutcrackers.
access that, instead of teaming up with cars in a crosswalk, Cheryl will need to team up with our buddy Isaac Newton, harnessing the power of gravitational potential energy to break it open. Because if she manages to do that, after somehow solving all the other 8 puzzles as well, then this IR emitter will trigger this IR sensor hidden at the base of the table, which will give the final signal to raise the bird cage, earning her the right to gorge on her well-deserved combo meal for as
15
long as
months.
she wants, without any fear of me chasing her off my porch. I should mention, by the
Wow,
way,
a
this
full
beautiful
Chick-fil-A
bird cage
meal
was
for
custom
her.
built for me by my Mythbuster buddy Adam Savage, and he made a really cool build video for it over on his
Bro,
YouTube channel.
I
called
fucking
Tested. You should
loved
totally check it out.
Mythbusters when I was a
So with the maze all
kid.
set up, I just needed to lure Cheryl to the study, and I knew just the
Mythbusters
trick.
was so
at which
good.
point, all I had to do was wait, and I didn't have to wait long. And
Oh
I should
shit,
mention,
she's
while I do
here.
have an affinity for testing species like crows, squirrels, and even octopi, my favorite species is humans. So I invited a few of them out to serve as a control group before Cheryl made her official attempt. Okay, to get the juicy nugs, you gotta solve 9 puzzles in this room. Any questions? Go. And their problem-solving skills kicked in right away.
I see white.
Is a bird smarter than a child?
Doors? Nothing. Hold on, wait. Think like a crow.
To retrieve the wooden ball, they started by just trying to utilize all the various objects on the table.
So we got a cork, pom-pom balls, rocks.
And it was really cool to see them trying a bunch of different things, totally unafraid of failure.
We need to find one that's long enough so that it'll push the water in and then it'll rise up.
While learning a little more with each unsuccessful attempt.
Maybe we put the rocks in and make the water go up?
Oh yeah.
Until
Oh
finally,
yeah.
More rocks.
they earned the eureka moment.
I got it.
Yes.
At the second puzzle, they started to recognize some patterns and pick up some confidence and momentum. On puzzle 3, immediately demonstrating their own excellent facial recognition skills with perhaps my favorite line of this whole video.
Hey, I reckon it's Backyard Scientist, the guy who helped with the lemon guy, and Mark Rober.
On this one, they couldn't reach the bell, so they tried a very novel approach that didn't quite work,
Just barely.
Country is this?
but it inspired a solution that did.
Oh, money!
Sort of.
Oh no.
How are we supposed to get that? We're not birds of prey.
And trying different things and knowing that failure is part of the process is what it means to think like an engineer. This is such an important skill to develop for life. It's written right on the side of every Crunch Labs build box that gets delivered to your door every
Hashtag
month,
ad.
where we build a really fun toy together and learn about the fascinating physics that make
Oh, yeah, that's a
it work.
cool
The best
ad,
part
though.
is, just like
It's
I
his
try
own
to do with my
product,
YouTube
too.
videos, we hide the vegetables, so you're learning all these useful life skills like resilience, but every step of the journey is still really fun.
Of course he slips it out.
Plus,
Well, he
all
has to
Crunch
pay
Labs
for the videos
subscribers now
somehow.
get their actual selfie taken from actual space.
The
and a
videos
chance
take
to
a lot
win
of
a
work
platinum
and money.
ticket every month to come hang out with me and my team for a day. So if you're a kid,
Yo,
and
Seer,
you're
what's
looking for
up?
something
It's
to put
like
at the top of your
OTK and
Christmas
Star
list, or
Forge.
you're just
Yo, Seer, I was telling them how you said I should go to the campsite. It does sound fun.
looking to be the household hero by gifting it to someone else,
I would
use the
go
link
to
in the
hang
video
out.
description or head to crunchlabs.com, where we're giving away 2 free boxes for our holiday special. So you've got something even more fun to open up.
It will be so much fun, dude.
Yeah.